Good afternoon. As it is 1 p.m., I will call this City Council workshop. Why am I echoing? Good? Nope.
Yeah, good conversation with yourself.
Right.
You get an extra emphasis.
All right. Good afternoon. As it is 1 p.m., I will call this City Council workshop of March 24, 2026 to order. No, I can still hear myself, but we'll keep going. Today's meeting will both be a physical and virtual meeting. The meeting may be viewed on YouTube and on Facebook following the meeting. Public comment is not normally taken at workshop meetings, although the council may allow or request public participation on action items. We have no action items onto our workshop agenda today. Welcome to all of those in attendance with us today. And at this time, I would now call upon City Council to report out on their commissions and committees as they see fit. Nothing? All right. Councilmember Arms.
Last Saturday, it was down at the marina again, and Lise had an awesome walk for the people that came and me, and she talked about the repair of the breakwater, and it was a delightful day to see a lot of people out and the kids feeding the fish again. So that was the main thing. Elise has the main thing, so I'm going to leave it to her.
Thank you, Councilmember Arms. Anybody else for the good of the order? All right, you guys have been busy. All right, so we will move on to community partner presentations then. Oak Harbor Yacht Club annual report, and here to introduce that is the Yacht Club Commodore David Murana.
Thank you, Mayor Wright, City Council, participants. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Maruna. I am the Commodore at the OHYC, Oak Harbor Yacht Club. So we'll get right into it. So the Oak Harbor Yacht Club functions as a nonprofit organization classified under both 501c7 and also created as the Oak Harbor Yacht Club Foundation 501c3 organization. Our mission is to educate and promote safe and environmentally sustaining boating practices, education, and providing a family-oriented atmosphere for membership, guests, and the local community. No boat, no problem. You don't need a boat to be a part of the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. Some of our key social events include traditional gatherings such as opening day of boating season. We have a big ceremony over at the Yacht Club. Our shakedown cruise, which is after the boats sit all winter long, we take the shakedown cruise over to Anacortes. It's short in case something happens to the boats, which does. We have our monthly weekend cruises, and we also bring in the Whidbey Summer Classic Regatta. Our social activities, Muscle Fest. We participated in the 4th of July parade, which was a lot of fun, and an after party over at the club. We have dinner and pitches during the year. These are, we bring in speakers from areas around the island, whether they have to do with boating, Deception Pass, the Forest Service. So it's interesting to have those. Usually it's every Thursday, every third Wednesday of the month. We've had the Whidbey Island Playhouse buyout. We do that once a year. That's a lot of fun. And then seasonally we have kayaking, which is a great time for people to get together and kayak. Some of the other events that we have is we have our seasonal cruising, our cruise activities. We have cruises to San Juan Island, Orcas Island, Everett, Kingston. There is a group of hardy sailors that take off for 3 weeks and voyage through the picturesque waters of the Salish Sea, which actually ends up in Canada. We also do trips to other areas of the Pacific Northwest. Club usage. The ballroom at the Oak Harbor Yacht Club is frequently chosen for a variety of events. It serves as a destination for weddings, change of command, celebration of life, community holiday parties, retirement celebrations, birthday parties. We have quite a few birthday parties up there. These events attract out-of-town people to come here. We just had a birthday party with 90 people from the Tacoma, Seattle area, and they came up and they spent the weekend here in Oak Harbor. The ballroom is also utilized by the City of Oak Harbor, Bloodworks Northwest, the Rotary Club, which meets every week. Yes, Friday, and the last Wednesday of each month. The Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce, we've had them up there for luncheon, and the American Boating Club, formerly known as the Deception Pass Power Squadron, utilizes it. Boater education, a big part of what the Oak Harbor Yacht Club is. We have the Oak Harbor Youth Sailing Program in the summertime, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also have the American Boaters Club. They come in every first Tuesday of every month, and we'll talk about that. There we go. Okay, I want to go back. There we go. Okay, Oak Harbor Sailing Program. The Oak Harbor Youth Sailing Program is, in my opinion, one of the most successful programs for kids to learn how to sail. It doesn't matter what their level is, whether you're highly skilled at sailing or whether you're a beginner. They get together during the summertime and they go through every day. They are learning something about sailing. Safety, knots, wind direction. And then they go out in the boats and they go around the harbor. You probably see them in the harbor in the summertime. They're always out there every day. But it's a great program. Last year we had, in 2025, we had 120 plus kids there. The year before, in 2024, we had 80 plus kids. So it is growing, and I think, like I said, I had the opportunity to spend some time, because I was in the office a lot during the summertime, and to see the young adults training these kids, fantastic program. The American Boaters Club, like I said, they meet the first Tuesday of every month. They talk about boat handling, navigation, safety, and first aid. And once a year they have an auction or a fundraiser where they sell crab pots, and they're really nice crab pots, so watch for that if you're a crabber. Okay, economic impact. The Oak Harbor Yacht Club has established reciprocal agreements of over 70 yacht clubs in the Puget Sound area. Boaters come up here, utilize reciprocal slips, and as they come in and use the reciprocal slips, they also come into town, they check out the restaurants, they check out the stores, and some of the other events that we have here, some of the clubs. The Oak Harbor Yacht Club also hosts several events that attract participants from a wider region. We have the Whidbey Summer Classic Regatta, which brings people in from up north down to Tacoma. It's a big thing. The High School Sailing Regatta, we had that last year. That was bringing people in from all over the western United States. Annual Lighted Boat Parade. Now that's more local, but it's a lot of fun. OHYC also has a booth. We had a booth at the 50th anniversary of the marina in the park. And it was a nice day. So thank you for that. In 2025, our organization prioritized membership engagement and retention as a critical focus. Membership retention for a social club is always very, very difficult. We have a welcoming environment at the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. We try to make sure that times that we're open are available so that most members are available at those times so they can come. They don't have to think about other things that they have to do. Ensuring the members feel comfortable. It's always a gathering of friends, family, while enjoying the camaraderie of fellow members. And participation in club events. We have a lot of events. We like to see our members come out and have a good time. That's what this is all about. We talked about the ballroom. Ballroom is a multifunctional space. There's breathtaking views of the harbor, Oak Harbor, the marina, and you cannot beat the view whether you're up in the ballroom or down in the clubhouse during sunsets. So I put up a summary of events. They're kind of repetitive because we have something going on almost every month. January to March, we host private parties, business meetings, and community fundraisers. April through June, wedding, Navy ceremonies, training events. And then July through September, again, we have the Summer Classic Regatta, and then various community events. October and December, we have fundraisers, we have change of command, holiday parties, and of course, for the club, we have the Commoner's Ball and the New Year's Eve celebration closing out the year. So, in summary, Oak Harbor Yacht Club is a welcome and family-friendly community for individuals who cherish boating, enjoy delicious food, and appreciate great company, and partake in lively gatherings. Looking ahead in 2025, we aim to strengthen our partnership within the community and promote economic growth for both the city of Oak Harbor and the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. Questions?
Council, questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Thank you for that presentation. I will point out that the sunrise is also beautiful from up there. Sometimes I'll do that on my run and stand up there, and maybe I'm not supposed to since you're not open, but we won't go there. Looking at the financials, please tell me if I'm, there's the look over the finance. Tell me I'm looking at this correctly. I see a total of income of 230,000, 231. And I see expenses, the COGS at 62. What's the total expenses? I see it, and I can add it up real quick, but you probably have it right there at the...
I do. Hi, I'm Kathy Jones. I'm the treasurer for the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. So our expenses for 2025 totaled $160,544.23. So our net operating income was $7,640.76. Because we operate on a shoestring budget, we had members donate almost $10,000 last year just to keep the club operating. And so as a result, we showed some profit for the year. COVID was not kind to our club, and We lost about half of our membership, so we're slowly building that back. As you can tell from the revenue stream, our dues are our primary source of income. So you can all be members and help us have a good time.
Can you, one more time, I see the total, the gross of 237.90. What was the total of expenses?
160, 544, 23. So that leaves an operating income of 7,640, 76. The cost of goods is the piece you're missing.
Okay,
Because, there's a cost of the food and
Okay.
beverage, et cetera, and catering. So that cost was another 62,604.78.
that's,
Apparently, when the data was transferred, that piece got left off.
okay. That's why I mean, as, not to open up old wounds, but of course there was the deal that was made for the 240 a month, which was a little controversial, and I was just making sure. My math was you're making quite a bit of money, not seeing the COGS part, and I was like, okay, that's not good if it's being rented for $240 a month.
Well, if we
So,
can get somebody to adopt us,
yeah, I understand. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Great, yes. Councilmember Romero.
Thank you, Mayor. Commodore, I wanted to make the observation that the marina, the marina, yes, but also the yacht club provides such a dynamic contribution to our community that I'm just delighted to see that you and your team are developing and expanding as much, as many different events and as much participation as possible, because there's always this lingering thought among some people that are very, what I call commoners. They would say, well, that's the yacht club, and so bringing them in all these events is hugely important, and I commend you for doing that. That's all I have.
Thank you. We are, the yacht club isn't what a yacht club is. It's very much just down-to-earth people, and some have boats, some don't. I mean, I can afford a kayak, so that's what I do. So it's a good group of people. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. Kathy, would you give me that number again, the 165, 440 something, the total cost, the goods sold and the other?
Sure. All right, so let me just run through this. Our revenue for 2025 was $230,789.73. Our cost of goods was $62,604.74. Our operating costs were $160,544.23 for a net operating income of $7,640.76. Then we had member donations of $9,949.38, interest income of $560.95, and we transferred to a reserve account. We started saving again, $10,000, so that our net income for the year was $8,151.07.
I don't see on your list here, on your 7 and 800s, I don't see that 10,000. Am I missing it somewhere, or is it not listed, Kathy?
On what was presented to them. I think weren't the full financials sent over?
No.
Just this?
Just this? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So just for clarification, I made a note for the Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director for future years. One of the expectations is that we have full financial statements, so that this would alleviate some of these questions, because I knew that you were going to get these questions today without having those numbers. So
Yeah, and I can see.
Luckily,
cost
you
of
brought
goods
Kathy
is
with you,
at
though,
the
so.
top of the page. So that was reflected there, but the net was not, and the total expenses were not. So I can see where,
yeah.
it would raise a few things.
So I mean, if you want to provide those later, that's fine. But I mean, that would be great. But yeah, that's perfect. So, but in the future, that's what we want to see, just so you are aware. So that will prevent that.
I wasn't finished.
Yeah, you can keep going.
I
was
wanted
just
to make sure that.
Yeah, I was just helping you out there.
I
so.
appreciate that. I'm still not done, but I just didn't want to overtalk you either, sir. Okay. Could you please tell me $6,213 in bank charges, what that entails?
Merchant fees, credit card fees.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Pretty
then-
much everybody pays by card these
Oh,
days.
okay, thank you. And then 46,000 for payroll. I thought most of this was volunteer work. Can you help me out with that?
We have paid bartenders,
Oh,
and for our events,
okay. And those are
paid
paid
staff members.
to the club and then to the
They are
bartender?
employees. They're not members. These are other people in the community that we employ.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate that. And now I'm done. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Councilmember Arms.
It's probably a question, but do you guys have a website?
We do.
Okay.
YC.org.
Okay, because, some of these events, people aren't really seeing. Like, I'm like, what? We have this. So that's nice to know that we have that. And probably, I know it costs, but maybe, making sure the marina knows, or, putting it out some way so maybe Maggie can help, so that we get more information and more people know that it's available and want to be out and doing it, so.
We love that partnership. You bet.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
One thing that David didn't mention about our sail fleet is we don't just have the one regatta. They have regattas from May through October. So the Thursday night series has already started. That's mainly local people. The Round Whidbey regatta brings people from out of town and from Canada down. The Scott Klein regatta, in addition to what we call Whisker, the Whidbey Island Summer Classic regatta, which is the biggest race of the year. But there's sailing going on every Thursday night. I'm sure you see the boats out there. And they're always looking for people to join them, whether they own a boat or not, if you have sailing experience and want to crew on a boat. And one of the things that our yacht club is doing to entice membership is to offer rides to our destinations to non-boaters. So, come on board, Intruder, and we'll take you to Anacortes, Deer Harbor, Roach Harbor, the different places that we have monthly excursions. Thank you.
Councilmember Stuckey has one more question.
You're almost out. It occurred to me, so, when we talk about revitalizing the marina, whatever that may look like, people often say, oh, we need a restaurant down there and things like that. Now, there are business considerations, and that might be hard, The idea of having an Anthony's down there like Anacortes may not be realistic right now. But the yacht club already has the infrastructure. Is there been any talk of long-term plan of opening that up to the public on consistent days, almost like a restaurant sort of style? Like right now, you may have something, it's a barbecue, anyone can come out when they want, but it's not always consistent. Has there been any conversation as we try to utilize the marina for tourism for the yacht club, who already has the infrastructure to try to accommodate tourists, not just members, and not just, hey, on this one Friday in summer, we have a hot dog feed? Like, has there any conversations like that within the club of utilizing the infrastructure already there?
There are two issues. One is we do have a written agreement with Zanini's Catering for them to provide events in the ballroom. So that's already in place. And Jackie promotes her own events. The second is that we also have an IRS issue
Yes.
in watching how much income is generated by the ballroom. We're not near that. So we would welcome more revenue at this point in time. But there is a statutory limit as to how much income can be generated from upstairs.
Maybe, Mayor, do you know what that number is?
35% of gross.
35% of gross. Okay,
It's going to depend, yeah. So,
thank you.
Anything else? All right. It's been real.
thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You're all good? All right, thank you very much for the report. We're going to move on to the city administrator's monthly departmental reports, and here is Sabrina Combs to present.
Good afternoon on this stormy day. We can hear it in the background. So I'm just going to run through some items from the monthly report. The full report is in the packet for your approval and review. So the first item I'm going to talk about is the state and federal legislation. So we want to thank State Representative Dave Paul for championing the Oak Harbor Marina project. We were very excited to learn. We didn't see that on the main list, but we did see it in the capital budget. So yay, very exciting news. This will add some upgrades to the area with marine electrical system, repairs to the restroom, and upgrades in Catalina Park overall. So very excited to move that project forward. Then during the recent state legislative session, Mayor Wright sent out letters of support relating to public defense funding, stabilization of the Public Works Assistance Account legislation, and Steve Schuler, the Director of Public Works, and I also participated in that. It was very important that we were sharing the importance of these funds and how we needed to keep those. So as a team, we were all working collaboratively together to address those items. And then the Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director, David Goldman, attended the National League of Cities Conference, so he was able to participating in Hill Day and other things around that. And then with that, we also want to congratulate the Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director, David Goldman, because he is received the honor for the America 250 celebration of being nominated for the National Academy of Public Administration. So we are very excited to see this. It's a Government Champions Award. And so, good luck to David. There were 2 people from Washington submitted, and he was one of the 2. Then we have some upcoming events we wanted to share and remind everybody about. There's the March 25th at 1 p.m. We have the Recreation Center Feasibility Study, Department Directors and Creative Arts Workshop. And so that's involving the creative arts, sitting down with our department directors at the city and talking with the consultants. Then on March 27th at 10 a.m., we have the Right Blend at the Oak Harbor Library. We are excited for that opportunity to sit and chat with our community members. And then on April 2nd from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., we have the Camas Flats ribbon cutting, and that is some affordable housing that we've all been waiting for, so we're very excited about that. Then on April 7th at 9 a.m., we have the coho salmon feeding and archaeologist chat with our archaeologist Gideon Kaufman, so that will also be a great opportunity to engage with our staff and talk about, and for him to share his knowledge as a tribal member. And then on April 11th at 1:30 p.m., we have the Oak Harbor Fire Ladder 81 push-in ceremony. This is a traditional event that we're also excited about. We have our new fire equipment coming, and this will be very fun for the community. And then on the next slide, we want to thank the partnership of the North Woodby Little League working with our Parks and Recreation staff on some work around the fields. So these are some of those photos, and just it's great when we as a community can come together with our community partners and make things better. So those are the updates that I have. Let me know if you have any questions.
Questions for Sabrina? None? All right, we are going to move on then to Parks and Recreation. Recreation Center Feasibility Study, and here to introduce that is our Communications Officer, Maggie Aguilar.
Clicker over here? Okay. No clicker?
He's taking it home with him. This is for you. I'll bring it over to you.
He's gonna put it in his kayak and click his way through the sea.
It's a souvenir. Hi. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having me here today. I am pleased to provide a brief background on the Recreation Center feasibility study and introduce our consulting team that is here today, and they will be presenting an overview on the study process, where we're at, and they will also be here tomorrow for, as Sabrina mentioned, the workshop with the team, and the Creative Arts Foundation have been invited as well. In 2024, the City of Oak Harbor was awarded $200,000 through state legislature, so we're very excited about that, to be able to use that to conduct this feasibility study. This is something that we have been hearing a lot in the community about, a recreation center and indoor facility. It's also a 2025-2026 council priorities, so checking things off of the list. So this is, I'm really excited to be involved in this process. So we're excited to begin the work, and we look forward to a meaningful participation from the community. I think this process will have wonderful results if we get the participation and involvement from our community through outreach, which will be conducted in April. We'll have a lot of engagement opportunities at all times of the day. So we're hoping that we get a lot of participation from our community and also from staff, council members, and everyone. So, and with that, I would like to introduce Rich Newman from Barry Dunn, who is here, and also we have BRS Architectures that is here as well, and they will also be here tomorrow to conduct the workshop. So thank you for being here and for all your hard work, and I will let them take over. Bring the clicker over to you.
Thank you so much. So again, Rich Newman with Barry Dunn. We are the consulting firm that's honored to assist the city of Oak Harbor with this feasibility study. We recognize Oak Harbor has experienced a lot of growth in recent years, and on a day like this, it's hard to imagine why you would want indoor recreation space. I mean, pickleball would be a blast out in this, right? But we're happy, again, to work collaboratively with the city on making and helping you to make an informed decision on whether this is right or for your community or not. And so I'm going to show you quickly, this is the agenda for today. It's great to have this FaceTime. We're considering this a kickoff to the project. So happy to answer any questions you might have about us. But also, most importantly, we want to hear from you and kind of understand any questions you might have, things you might be excited about, pitfalls, things like that.
Mr. Newman, is your microphone on?
It's lit up. Is it too far away? Can you hear me? How about now? How about now? All right, this one's a dud. I just want to... Sorry about that.
That's better. We can hear you now.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Really good, great to have this FaceTime with you today. We're going to talk about the project, help outline the phases, what to expect, the timeline. This is a time for us to gather some information and feedback from you to make sure we set off on the right course. And we're also going to talk about next steps, the public engagement, and then what we do with all that information. That's really at the core of this study. But first, I want to take an opportunity to introduce the full team. Again, I'm Rich Newman. I am based out of the Denver metropolitan area, although we do have, I want to be clear, we're a national firm. We do have consultants who live here in the Pacific Northwest, and you'll be meeting them at later stages in the process. But I'm going to turn it over to our principal with Barry Dunn, Lisa Paradis. There we go.
Thanks, Rich. My name's Lisa Paradis. I'm a partner principal with Barry Dunn, and Parks, Recreation, and Libraries is one of our local practices. I'm a practice lead for that, as you can see. As Rich has stated, that we are a national firm, so we do these kinds of projects all over the country. I will say, though, we just don't drop in from the sky as this management team. Our whole team of 25 people have had long and very interesting and fruitful careers within the public sector. Myself, I was a director of Parks and Recreation for 27 years, before I transitioned over to the private sector in the consulting world in 2018. Most recently in Boston was my last 10 years. So just to give you a little bit of background, this is our blood. We know this work. This is not something that is just another management consulting gig for us. This is what is in our blood and in our careers. In Barry Dunn, you can see that we also have a vast array of other people that are helping us with this project. They are located in different parts of the country and locally as well. From your screen, you can see that at Barry Dunn will be the prime, as we call it, in projects like this. And we are really your primary contacts for the entire project. Rich is the project manager. He will keep everything on track, time-wise and financially and otherwise. I hold Rich's coffee most of the time. That was a joke. Sorry about that. But just to say that really, I'm kind of behind the scenes and direct things as is needed. We also, there's a array of different items in the analysis piece that Rich will speak about in a later slide, so I won't go too much into that, but I also do want to allow us to introduce our teammates on this project, BRS, and we have two of their wonderful consultants with us today, and I'm going to pass that mic over to them. Keith? Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. My name's Keith Hayes. I'm with Barker Rinkers Seacat Architecture. We're based in Colorado and Texas. We do specialize in community recreation across the country. It's been our focus for about the last 10 years. It's what we speak on, we do research on, and we're fortunate to practice literally in 40 states. We've had the privilege of working with Lisa and
My name is Rich.
Rich, sorry. Not just on 25 projects, but for over 25 years. We've worked with Barry Dunn and their predecessor firm. So we're happy to be here.
And I'm Mary Shambuck. I'm a project manager at BRS Architecture, so I'll be helping manage this process from the concept development for plans and the site assessments alongside Rich and Keith.
So as I mentioned, we are at the discovery phase of this project, starting to collect information, understanding as much as we can about this wonderful community. And this is serving as our official kickoff event. The heart of it will be the workshop tomorrow, where we will really start tearing into the project. But I wanted to show you the other phases. 5 and 6 are kind of tied together, but I'll explain that as we go. You can see at the arrow, that's where we are. And community engagement is the next real major step, and in between now and then, and during the entirety of the project, until we come back to you, there will be a lot of things happening in the background in terms of data analysis. We'll talk about that in a minute as well, but that community engagement piece is where we are inviting as many voices as possible to the conversation. And then we bring it back to you for visioning, and we talk about what we heard, and taking an opportunity to really test those findings and answer any questions we might have before we report back to you with the report itself, and also the implementation. We kind of put it together. We kind of give you the recommendations in a written format and offer our advice and answer any questions you might have, so that you can make any determinations that you need from this project. I know this is too small to read, but it is basically a Gantt chart kind of showing where we are and where the deliverables will fall. This is a project that we hope to have completed by the end of December. That's our target. So lots of things happening simultaneously, as you can see by all the overlaps. You're currently at that first red bar. That's our kickoff showing our March visit. We will also be back in April. That's when we kick off the public engagement portion of this with our stakeholder meetings, pop-ups at local businesses, just making sure we're everywhere we could possibly be in capturing those voices. We've currently have a website loaded. We have project collateral. I saw it at your front desk. Thank you for having that up. So everything is live and ready to roll. But when we return in April, we'll be doing the heavy lifting of going to people. And we'll explain a little bit about our philosophy in a minute. But the data analysis is a big part of this project. It's not as simple as saying you want a rec center, well, here's what it would cost. We have to understand what the community wants, what the community needs, what might be the unmet needs that help inform this decision. So that's what we'll be doing with the engagement piece. But we'll also be looking at what are trends in the industry, what's happening in the world of recreation. How do you plan for the future? How do you build a future that's sustainable? We'll be looking at that, as well as funding sources. How do you pay for it? It's one thing to say what it costs, but how do you build a model that it is sustainable? Not just from operating expenses, but revenues, et cetera. All that's baked into that data analysis that's happening simultaneously. I hope I'm not the one causing that snapping and crackling. If I am, I apologize. But as I mentioned, we're really here to speak with you, and we would love your feedback and your guidance as we launch this campaign. And one of the questions I like to pose is, what are your hopes and dreams for indoor recreation in Oak Harbor? This is your chance. Hopes and dreams.
Hopes and dreams and everything in between, right? A facility that is open year-round can provide basketball, volleyball, dodgeball, potentially could be used for other types of events is similar to that, in conjunction with the outside programs we have too, so that it's all supported, right? I mean, if a whole complex of park with the rec center in the middle of it would be ideal. And I'd love to have a more of a, I lost my word, but improved, we live on an island, so I'd like to, have some focus towards swimming and whatnot as well too, even though we do have a public pool here already. Not saying replace it, but maybe partnership in a way that works in conjunction with what's already existing instead, but as a child who grew up here, when I grew up, we ran the streets till the lights came on. But nowadays, we don't live in a world where that's really possible as much anymore. And so it'd be nice to have a place for kids to go to that's available, in that big scheme. I'm sure there's others that have other input and whatnot too that can expand upon that. But yeah, absolutely. Take the best we can get for our community that's going to last us 50, 60 years.
Councilman Peterson.
Having coached my kids in baseball and basketball and a number of different things in the Pacific Northwest, I am loving the idea of an indoor recreation place for the kids and adults here. My hope and dream would lean heavily toward a public-private partnership. It would be, and I'm sure other council members will speak about this, but Chehalis has a really cool recreational facility. I want to use this as a place where people bring their kids to baseball tournaments and basketball tournaments, come from off island and go, I have a small business that would really thrive here. How do I work my business into raising my family on this island where they get to be part of the land and not part of the concrete? I have so many ideas about this, and I can't wait to hear what you guys bring with your expertise. But I see walls that can move, and one day can be pickleball, and one day can be soccer, and the next day can be something else. It keeps me up at night, so I'm really excited to hear what you guys bring. So thank you.
Councilmember Stuckey.
I'm going to take a little different spin on this question here. But hey, that's just how it goes with these sort of things, right? I mean, in my opinion, my hopes and dreams are really secondary to what the community wants. And I think I want to zero in on that. We have done projects of much smaller scale, plans, where we've solicited feedback. And the feedback has, in my opinion, been not great. I mean, not to pick on it, I look at the arts plan that about 130 people took the time to fill out. I look at the firehouse. It was around like 100 responses or something like that, give or take. And I don't feel like that is totally representative of the community. So I am hoping through this process to get as much feedback as possible. I think we will, because I think this is something a lot of people have opinions on. I feel it needs to also be something that is manageable cost-wise. I feel it's something that a majority of people want. That's my feeling, but having data is good to back that up. But there is always that's always the question, what's it going to cost? And that's not to get in the weeds today. And there's always going to be some people who think no matter what, if it was $10, we still shouldn't do it. I acknowledge that. But something that this town can be proud of, something that has enough feedbacks to incorporate what the majority of people want, something that is feasible cost-wise, and also something that enhances the local businesses and doesn't take away from them. I don't want to create something that maybe someone else has a business of that may go out of business because of this. So my hopes were more around the community feedback, getting people involved, and building something that the majority of this community can get behind. My personal, I think it should have this, I think it should have that, I really think is secondary to what the community wants and getting that feedback.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Arms.
I agree with Councilmember Stuckey. I really think this is very important for the community to make a decision. You know, we can have our ideas, but this is something that the community is going to live forever. So I think, like we said, for other things, we haven't got the input. Hopefully we will, because they're the ones they're going to probably have to pay to have their child or an adult go to that rec center. So we want to make it, you know, accessible, and we want to have it fit in, and then encourage other businesses to kind of contribute or bring their business here because they see what we're doing. And like I said, one of them is in a closed rec center because, with the weather. And I think it's just vitally important that the community, we can make all decisions here, ultimately will, but I think it's really important that the community come first. I think it's their rec center. You know, we are just facilitating it.
Councilmember Romero.
With some history, thank you, Mayor. With some history with project management, I completely appreciate the Gantt chart and mindful of the fact of the organizational piece that's involved in it. I did want to speak, though, with regard to the survey. We have a transient population of Navy people, and then we have a mass of retirees, and then a whole scope of others. And being able to get an accurate assessment of public opinion is very difficult. Ask any political survey company who's trying to find out what the sense is. And so what I would say is I'm encouraging that we move forward not with a plan that's produced by specialists that's sitting in front of a computer, but actually involved in the people it impacts, because my emphasis in public service has always been the end users. And then that really difficult piece is the unmet, we call them the unknown unknowns. In other words, the people, if they knew about it and they thought about it, they would take advantage of it. But trying to reach to them too. So in closing, I suppose the main thing is that the steps going forward are realistic with the end users in mind, because there's always the people that speak the most do not necessarily represent at all the broad sweep of end users. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Figure out how to put my hand down here. Thank you for the presentation. I'm really looking forward to the workshop tomorrow and hearing more details and to follow along in this process to hear what kind of feedback we get. I'm personally, when you say, what are your hopes and dreams, and you just kind of throw a big blank question mark out there, it's hard for me to get my imagination to kind of dial down to what's realistic. I'm not sure if this is the hopes and dreams stage of the process, if I can just throw whatever out there, if we don't need to be realistic yet, or how detailed do you want to get? Because, immediately I'm thinking, sports and recreation, we need an indoor space because sports are all year round, and the weather and the lighting and the conditions of the soil are not always conducive to that. So, but then I think about all of the other recreational type, out of the box type things that we, Chris mentioned, a pool or water, or, I'm thinking also maybe a community space or a performance space or a music space or a arts and crafts space. How many people would like to do something like, play with pottery or something, but the reason they don't do it is because they don't have a place in their, they don't have anywhere to go do that kind of thing. And so I'm not, right now I'm kind of struggling with trying not to make the overall vision too complicated, but I also don't want to limit ourselves, I guess, if that makes sense. One thing that is important to me is that we fill the gaps. There's lots of services in the community, and Councilmember Stuckey touched on this a little bit, but I don't want to necessarily replicate efforts that are already being made, but this is our opportunity to fill the gaps and create opportunities where there currently aren't any, and we would like there to be. And so it's important to me that we're not replicating and that we're filling the gaps and that we're kind of thinking of I don't know, like out of the box activities as well as your traditional sports things. And as Councilmember Peterson mentioned, convertible spaces. If we're going to be really efficient with our dollars and our space, that multi-use spaces and convertible spaces as much as possible, I would be really interested in. So I'm not sure how helpful any of that was, but I'm looking forward to following the process.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you were thinking perhaps the Centralia Sports Hub, as opposed to Chehalis. Yeah, okay, it is Northwest Sports Hub. So this is something that, when we're talking about what our individual hopes and dreams are, as somebody like Councilmember Wigginstein, who grew up here and has spent almost 20 years running my kids around to different venues and coaching the AAU basketball and such. What I envision is a community space where right now when you want to have basketball practices or you want to have wrestling practices or anything like that, you have to use the schools, and you're trying to book through the schools. What I like about what Centralia has there is the ability for it to be basketball, volleyball, wrestling, pickleball, tennis, and it's not just necessarily for kids, but it is of all age groups. We're serving our entire community. One of my hopes and slash fears is that we try to be everything to everyone, and that then it becomes, in my opinion, convoluted and the project starts to balloon to a point where it becomes almost insurmountable. And so I would like, I think Maggie did a great job in helping to kind of draft the survey and that we kind of narrowed down a little bit in what our scope is. But for me, that's what I envision is a place that kids can go and they can participate. Right now, we don't have a gym that is a public gym. You can't go and play basketball, not as a kid, not as an adult. There's no adult leagues that are available, and so this is a place where we can commingle and get exercise and create opportunities for mentorships for kids and get them off the streets, and hopefully it'll be someplace that is kind of centrally located that allows them to be able to bike there or be able to take our bus system there or walk there from after school. But I'm really excited about this project and all the possibilities that it brings, and I appreciate the work that you guys are doing and look forward to bringing this across the finish line in years to come. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Marshall's made some excellent points, as have the other council members, and I would support every point that's been made so far. But having been in law enforcement, recognizing the need for a place for young people to go to recreate and have constructive mentorship and constructive activities would reduce the incentive to be socializing with drug dealers and druggies and getting into that whole matter, which of course is tremendously destructive. And with regard to overextension, so it's very easy to build something on a computer and say we want to do that, but the practical truth is the costs involved, and then of course the opportunity costs and the sacrifices that are made. So I mean, I love this facility in Centralia, but the thought is that if it can be a design that's modular enough that it can be used for flex and can be expanded, as opposed to some fixed entity that's locked in and you can't build on it, So just as far as the efficiency, the financial piece, because that's really how I roll, I would like that to be included. So I'm not addressing really the activities per se, but that's part of my vision, that it's efficient, that it's expandable, it's endurable, and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is that it? All right, you guys have more, or?
We do, and,
All right.
and I just want to reiterate that this is our opportunity to talk to council. Tomorrow is really designed for staff feedback on the project team, and it's a lot more into the weeds. This is really the opportunity for us to have the conversations with you. So if there's anything that you have, our next question, for instance, some of you have already addressed, but we're asking about fears and concerns. But this is the chance, and we're going to address some of the costing, and there's a slide for BRS to speak directly to that. And I want to just add that I'm really excited to hear you say what you said about the public engagement process, because I think that's where Barry Dunn really shines. I'm thinking that's probably why you hired us in the first place, and I know that I don't need to make a sales pitch here because we have the contract. But our philosophy, and this is true, this is not hyperbole, we really believe in taking that message to the people. We don't expect people to come to us. So you're never going to see us at an event sitting behind a table with a bunch of papers and saying, well, you want to take a survey? You want to give us some comments? No, we're out talking to people, meeting them where they gather, doing pop-ups in partnerships with local businesses, offering incentives, and this is on Barry Dunn's dime. Hey, we'll buy you a cup of coffee if you'll give us some feedback. That's the kind of immersive engagement we like to conduct, and I think it's a real distinguisher. And I will say that while others might say, at the core of it, we do have a statistically validated survey, and that's intentional. That's done so that if you ever need to say, hey, let's tune out the people that we always hear from that are stuffing the ballot boxes, if you need cold, hard, objective data, that's where it starts. Because it's a random survey, and that's the basis. It's weighted against your exact demographics. You know exactly. We enhance it with all the other stuff, and we'll explain all of that when the reporting comes. We'll show you on a matrix where we heard it, how often we heard it, how many times, how do you put all that together? But I just wanted to reassure you, while others might be satisfied with, hey, we did a survey and we got 100 people, now let's build this multi-million-dollar center with this 100 people weighing in. I get that. That's a very valid concern. We measure our engagement a little bit differently. We measure it by how many people are invited to the conversation. That's documented evidence of they've opened an email. Not it was just mailed to them, open rates. How many people we had face-to-face conversations with, how many business cards or QR codes we pressed into their hands. We measure all that, and we call those touch points. And while other communities might be happy with 100, we're talking about thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people, documented evidence of them being invited to the conversation. There's always going to be people, like the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but we can document how many people were offered, extended the invitation to come to the table and leave that feedback. So just know that we're hearing you, and we're passionate about this, and we want to get it right, and we're going to work very hard to make sure that we get as many voices as we can. With that said, let me jump to any other fears and concerns before I turn it over to our partners at BRS to talk about building-related stuff.
Councilmember Stuckey has something, and I just want to add one quick point. I don't think it's a worry about making the outreach. We've made plenty of outreach in other instances. It's getting people to show up to the table. That's where we need to see a difference, a tangible difference, because we can do outreach all day long. Whether that be out in community events, whether that be in flyers that we're mailing, direct mailing, but we can't require people to show up. We live in a society of people that like to sit on Facebook and complain about things and then not show up for things. So how you're going to actually make that happen, that's what I want to see. So, Councilmember Stuckey.
Oh, using tangible, my favorite word there, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with statement as well. It's if you guys crack that code on how to get the folks to take that Facebook comment and then make it an email comment, let me know. I'm going to be watching that one. I'm going to use that one. When we're talking about fears, a couple other thoughts, many of them have touched on. When we talk about cost, it's having the cost and sticking with the cost. Unfortunately, what happens in government, we've had some large projects that this is the budget, and and then that budget increases and increases, and I believe that's a sore spot for some members of our community. Not, getting enough feedback is the main thing for me, and also finding a place that's not too big and not too small. To Councilman Marshall's point, we don't want something so grandiose it's unaffordable, but we also don't want to say, hey, we did this feedback, we feel like we got to come up with something and then do something half-hearted that just gives us the pat on the back that something was done. So you guys are experts at this, looking forward to what you can come. I don't feel like these are unique concerns, but you asked the question, I'm happy to give some answers.
Yes, Councilmember Peterson, sorry, didn't see your arm.
It's all right. I'll get you sooner or later. You were talking about who you're reaching out to and finding out what the community wants. Since you're so good at that, my assumption is you have plans to go to the schools and talk to the actual end users of a recreation facility and find out what the kids are looking for. Is that a hard ask? Are they to let the schools let you in? Or how does that all briefly?
Surprisingly, it can be a hard ask because they're in the business of educating their students, and sometimes that door is pretty strict and pretty closed. But we have ways of working around it, and we will certainly make the effort and do the best we can. Absolutely. I mean, we recognize that this is a particularly younger community. We just pulled demographic information, and we see that it tends to skew lower than other surrounding communities and in the state as well. So yes, we're definitely going to target those. We have specific strategies for each of your current users. For instance, people that are already using your recreation programs. I know it's a relatively young department, but there are people already taking classes and programs. The people that never have heard about it, but also those hard to reach voices, which tend to be teens are particularly hard to reach. Seniors can be hard to reach for technology and other reasons. So we actually have specific strategies for each of those groups to make sure they're included to the best of our ability.
Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of the schools, it's not just the concern is we have to have a relationship with the school district in this project or it's not going to get completed. In my mindset, I just don't see enough physical land space without a relationship with the school district. And that's a good thing. I think we want that and we need that and we want to continue to grow that. So, yeah, I too, I'm it's very important to get the community engaged somehow. And I didn't highlight it earlier, but it really, having been here off and on for 50 years, and the majority of it here, having raised kids here a little bit, having been a kid here, this is a no-brainer as it has to happen at some level. It's just how it's going to look. I'll be surprised that, I think the biggest concern is where people don't want it to cost a ton of money, and they don't want to have their taxes raised in order to do it. And so we got to figure out how to do it within those regards, So that's that other concern. So.
Councilmember Arms.
The other thing we have to remember is we have a large military community, and so they do have pretty nice fields, and they're not enclosed. But on Ottfield, they have a lot of these things already in place. But then a lot of the military lives right here, goes to school right here. So I think that's important to engage. Figure out what they want, because some of these people are long-term. They may be here for 6, 7, 8 years, and their kids are growing up here. So it would be kind of nice to include them and see what kind of different things that they would like than what they already have.
And I will just add that we have been in touch already with the Naval Station, and they're very interested in sitting down and having discussions with us in the form of a stakeholder conversation. And we'll make sure we do the same with the school districts. When I talk about the school districts, I'm meaning sending messages home with the kids can sometimes be a pain point, because if they do it for one, they have to do it for all, and then you can see where that might become a distraction from their core service. That's all.
Thank you for that.
Councilmember Romero.
So as the other council members and you all have been speaking, the mind just starts rolling, okay? So, some fear, some concern, okay? Change orders, okay? Massive cost it's just throwing away money. So it's got to be done right the first time. That doesn't mean there's going to be some tweaking, but what I'm saying, these change orders, we got to do it this way, and now we got to, all that loss. Scope creep, okay? So you lock in what's going to be done and get it done. So we don't expand. It's just like, they tell me that eating cactus candy, it just seems to expand in your mouth. We don't want something that just keeps growing and growing, sort of like a cancer. Get it right. Cost creep, okay? So that's the other factor too, because we're dealing with inflation. And of course, there's no shortage of developers who like to bump up the price, and as they go, so that's got to be done too. And then last of all, sustainability through maintenance. Because how many times have I seen projects that were just beautiful when they started out, but no provision was made for adequate maintenance? And last of all, obsolescence. Okay, so you build we build a project, right? But the unique parts that are needed for some item, everything else is designed to last for 70 years, but that one part is designed to last for 10, and you can't get it unless you manufacture it somewhere individually. So what I'm stating to you is I have personal experience with this, and I have loathing of these failures. So that's that. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure I would qualify this maybe as like a fear, but I guess a concern maybe is something I want to keep in mind. And Councilor Wittgenstein touched on this. Growing up here, I grew up here. I got here in the first grade and have lived here the whole time. And something like a rec center is my entire life. That this is what we need. The community needs a rec center. We need something to do and place to do it, and et cetera, et cetera. And what I don't want to happen is for us to finally have an opportunity to do the thing, the number one most important thing that we've been hearing about literally our entire lives, and miss an opportunity or a component. I'm not really sure how to articulate this, but we have this opportunity and we have an opportunity to do it right. And what I don't want to happen is for us to get to the end and have there be some glaring, oh my God, why didn't we do X, Y, and Z while we had the opportunity to do so? So that's something that, then I imagine that's not a unique concern either. I'm sure nobody wants that to happen with their big project. So I'm just going to be keeping an eye on any missed opportunities along the way. And something I would like to especially make sure that we don't lose sight of is accessibility. And I know that, in modern building codes and stuff have certainly improved, but for us as a community in particular, we are what the United States Navy considers an exceptional community. And so we have a number of families with special needs that live here, and probably more concentrated than it would be in other areas. And so I want to make sure that enhanced need for accessibility is something that we are keeping in mind, so that this is something that can be used by everyone in the community.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Are you guys good? They can move on with the next question. All right. It's all yours.
Rather than a question, I'm going to follow up with, if I can get this to work. There we go. Answer some of those questions you were posing. It's very great feedback, and I know that our experts, VRS, are happy to address some of those concerns right off the bat.
And thank you, Rich. And we ask these questions really to solicit your feedback and understand, it is good to dream. It's good to share what the fears and concerns are. We want to know those so we can pay attention to those. Absolutely, change orders, cost overruns. We want to start the process, and we'll do this tomorrow, with understanding, thinking about a number and prioritizing the activities and the spaces that occur in the building relative to that number. And I would add, we want a building, as the slide says, it's got to be versatile. We need to have complementary programming. We need to have a system-wide approach and understand the other activities that you're doing, the other needs that are met in the community. We want to have flexibility. We want to deal with different generations. We want to deal with activities that, to the extent we know, that can evolve over time. Did we all read or know about Zumba 30 years ago before it happened? Maybe not. But we certainly had spaces that Zumba could occupy. And so having some degree of flexibility, like I say, we would like to have spaces being multi-purpose, but not to the point that they're multi-useless. And that goes to adaptability. How can the building change and age over time? We really pride ourselves in trying to pick, using a good, better, best approach and picking durable finishes that age well, and that the building reflects, it's going to reflect Oak Harbor, the people that live here, the special place that Oak Harbor is. But something that's, again, good to maintain. Councilmember, I hear what you're saying about stuff that you buy. It seems like it used to be 20, 30 years ago, you get a refrigerator, it would last for 50 years. Now you get a refrigerator, when the ice maker breaks, you got to get a new refrigerator. I don't like it either, and unfortunately that's a bigger problem than I personally can solve, but I'm sympathetic to the question, and we certainly want to make things that we can use durable materials that we can maintain and make them look good over time. Any questions or comments regarding that?
All right. So we talk about our next steps, and again, I'm sorry some of these might seem out of context, but they seemed appropriate to slot into different positions. But when we talk about engagement, here is a slide that kind of summarizes what I said earlier about being immersive, customized. Nothing we do is off the shelf. We're going to give you, here's what we usually do for engagement. You're going to get A, B, C, D. We're working hand in hand with Maggie to make this custom to your community. To that end, we make it as convenient as possible as well. That's why we use a hybrid approach. We do have a project website that serves as an engagement portal where we're collecting all the information in one place. People can visit that website from the comfort of their home and give feedback, as long as we let them know it's there. That's the key. And being inclusive, we do pride ourselves on reaching those challenging audiences that sometimes aren't forthcoming with their feedback. And lastly, being defendable by measuring those touch points. It's more than just the number of people who responded to a particular tool. It's we're quantifying those invitations to the conversations. And the slides look a little bit washed out on the screens, but you can see some of the engagement activities we talk about, whether it's discreetly interrupting a game of pickleball on the court, to community events, to local businesses, whatever the case may be. We like to be out and about and fully immersed in the community. In case you haven't seen it yet, it's parked at your front desk, but this is what I was acknowledging earlier. We do have marketing collateral out on the streets already, very straight and to the point. Do you want a recreation center? We're also careful on the language on the website that we're not promising you're going to get one. It's a study. We're looking at feasibility. We're weighing all the options, and that's really the point of the study. It's not a guarantee, but we're being mindful, and we really need to measure where those gaps might be in the community. And at that point, I would just ask if we have any other questions. We're happy to answer them for you.
Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Just one. I'm sure everyone you work with thinks that their community is unique. I'm not going to be any different. We're here on an island. Do you have, just briefly, successes with cities of our size? I mean, if we were in a city of, say, Everett, I could be like, oh, I could see how this could be absorbed a little easier in property taxes or a sales tax or something like that. Do you have maybe one or two examples of cities that are of our size, 25-ish thousand people, who have made this work?
I do, and I'll ask Lisa to weigh in here as well. But Obviously, I live in Colorado. I have quite a few clients in Colorado, and several of them are in what once were far-flung areas of the metropolitan area that, with the explosive growth that we've seen in Colorado, are now facing challenges like this. They're towns of a similar size, and suddenly they have a strong need because people have moved in and want recreation assets, and there are none. And at the same time, they're small. They don't have a lot of, they're built out. They don't have a lot of undevelopable space and revenues associated with that. So they also have to find solutions to them. I'm thinking of Timnath, Colorado, which just recently passed and is in the process of building. I want to say it's a $40 million project. Is that too? Am I? 100 million. I was way off. Our partners are working on this project with us. BRS is a partner on that project. Any others you can think of that same size?
We worked with one that is among the smallest is Cortez, Colorado, in the extreme southwest corner of Colorado, and I want to say that was 3,000 or 4,000 people when we did that building back in the early 2000s. Councilmember. We just finished a field house and gymnasium and track facility for Gig Harbor. I want to say Gig Harbor is maybe a little bit bigger than Oak Harbor is. We're working in Redmond, Oregon, on a 50,000 square foot leisure aquatic center there. The facilities, the communities, they're all different sizes, and they seem to make it happen. We did a project in northern Colorado in Eaton, not too far from Timnath, and I would be willing to bet that the community is probably less than 4,000 people. The recreation district might be more like 10, and they probably have something like 50,000 people within a drive time of 10 or 15 minutes. So they're all over the map.
Okay. Those are just a few examples.
Councilman Romero.
Simply an observation about fiscal responsibility. Ultimately, the project that we're looking at is going to be some tens of millions in current dollars, which doesn't alarm me at all. But I'm certain that we have to have the broadest possible base of support for a project of this nature. And I'm mindful, too, that Oak Harbor, the city of, has a certain financial base, I'll just call it, for fiscal sustainability, and being able to get grants or interlocal agreements or partnerships with people outside the city, because it's that piece about broadening the base. Because a project like this, we cannot just have onesies and twosies of small satellite groups that are interested. It's got to be community-wide. That's all I have.
No more questions, comments? They're looking for you guys. This is your time. Okay. Next.
And that's all we have for you.
All right.
Yeah, we thank you for your time today. Thank you for being a part of this process, and certainly working closely with your staff. So if there are things that come to mind after the fact, and to the extent that you're able to share with staff to pass along, we will see you in the future. This is not a one and done by any means. We bring it back to you and do our best to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what we have. And yeah, looking forward to this process. Thank you for being our first and kicking this off with us.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is an update for North F Dock repairs, and here to introduce that is our Harbor Master, Elise Henry.
On budget, but I do not want to make that promise until I get my final invoice. But considering the divers were only on staff for 4 out of the 11 days they were budgeted for, I think we're looking pretty good. We were going to come to you earlier in the month. I'm glad we didn't, because it literally changed hour by hour out there. They worked really hard and were on site for a total of 12 days. Just to start off with, I need you to realize we had to go through 7 different permits to do this, which to me is mind-boggling that we needed 7 permits for emergency repairs. Nonetheless, we were able to gain all of those I will say our final Washington Department Fish and Wildlife HPA, we did have to have some mitigation. Luckily, we have a great partnership with WSU and their beach cleanup project, the Community Litter Cleanup Program. They were on site at the marina February 24th, and that worked as our mitigation because we were required to do a beach cleanup. They actually collected 160 pounds. The largest things were 2 tires and a bike. There was 12 different volunteers, and it ended up being about 3,000 linear feet along the embankment and down to the shore that was covered. So terminology, just as a reminder for those of you who aren't out there all the time, I'm going to throw words around that you may not remember. Main walkway, when I say that, it's just going to be that linear footpath that you can walk, not necessarily down to a boat or out on a patio. Lord, sorry. A patio is that little bump out area that you're going to see. A panel is one section of a patio. A picket is one section of a panel. And then a through rod is what holds everything together. So just a heads up, I put a little diagram to kind of show those as well. And I figured I would move that closer to the front because when I start talking about everything else, I'm going to throw those terms around. So relocation, we only had 3 boats that actually ended up having to be relocated. One was our liveaboard. They chose to relocate mainly due to noise. And we were able to accommodate them on the south end of FDOC and not turn any guest boaters away. March is not a huge guest boater month for us typically, so we were able to still accommodate anyone looking for guest moorage. And then we had 2 boats that were affected by those 27-foot through rods, which, shockingly enough, were the easiest through rods to replace in this project. But they were also able to go to South F, and then we had one placed on G dock. Boater was out of town, crew had to move them over so that the rod could be removed from the boat side, not the water side. And no one else took us up on the offer to move, so we've already had 1 boat relocate back, and the other 2 will relocate once the wind dies down. So timeline, just so you know, the barge showed up actually prior to construction. Everybody got super excited seeing the barge come in. It did leave last night about 5:30. I had to joke. I text the supervisor with the construction company. I was like, is your barge actually leaving today? Like, your spuds are up. I think it's time for it to go. And literally, as soon as I sent that text, out went the tug with the barge. So apparently all you have to do at the marina is talk about it and it'll happen. At least that's my goal. Week 1, they were able to remove 6 of those 9 dislodged panels / retrievals. Through rods that needed to be replaced, most of those under the water were replaced. Like I said, the divers were only on site for 4 days. And then week 2, we actually had all of the panels removed. It was pretty eerie out there. There was lots of caution tape around. And then all of the final underwater rods were replaced. And then we had that week, for whatever reason, they tried to do panels that were like numbers. So panel 2-2, patio 2, panel 2 was replaced, and then panel 8-8, patio 8, panel 8 was replaced. And they had the long rod from patio 5 replaced that week as well. I will talk about some in the construction. As I mentioned, it changed hour by hour a little later. Week 3, thankfully we had the luck of the Irish on our side because, like I said, we were really terrified when there was only 2 of 9 panels rehung by the end of week 2. But luckily, no issue whatsoever when it came down to it. They had all of the final panels reattached. The last long rod they figured out was actually a mistake due to one of the items that we had chose to use as a temporary fix out there. So we have learned, like I said, some lessons with that. As I've mentioned before, divers were only on site for 4 days. So this is just a nice diagram. All of that. I won't go back through that. I don't think you need to hear me say it for a second time. And here are some of the obstacles. So we figured out once they detached some of those panels that the plate that guides that panel back into place was no longer a plate. It was literally a little chunk of metal hanging on the rod that should have been an 18-inch plate. Luckily, we knew the fabrication shop, called them up and said, hey, I need 18 of these. How fast can you do it? Within 48 hours, they had the product ready for us. That worked out really well, especially since American Construction didn't have a welder on board. So they weren't going to be able to do it themselves. We would have had to go off island to get this product completed. And we would have been looking at that over budget conversation and that change order conversation had we not been able to solve this locally. 3 of the panels, once they were pulled up off the bottom, had pickets that were missing. We had already talked with Frontier Lumber and had gotten a quote and a lead time on how long the composite lumber would take to arrive, because in our permits, we were required to use that composite lumber or the plastic lumber similar to Trex that you might use on your patios. We're able to get those in about 10 days, which is very quick considering the stuff that was ordered prior to the project even starting is still not here. And that is stuff that my staff is going to be able to implement. American Construction will not have to be redeployed to take care of that part of the project. And then one of the complications as they were trying to run one of those 27-foot through rods is there's a nice little steel plate that sits between the patio and that main walkway. Every time they'd go to push the rod through, the patio fell, or that plate fell down, so the rod would hit the plate. Before, when they were out here, they had their welder. They tacked on a couple of pad eyes, lifted that plate up with the crane. Not something they could do this time, so they actually figured out how to counterbalance on the patio, kind of dip it down a little bit to where the plate would be up just enough that they could slide that rod through and then take the counterweight off. These guys are very creative, and I am very thankful that even though they were frustrated beyond belief, they kept going. We also, as I mentioned, the other long through rod, we had used a product that is like rubberized because we had noticed that the corners kept bumping and hitting each other, and we were trying to prevent the cracking at those corners. That apparently seeped down into the broken conduit of that rod and like cemented that rod in place. The construction guy came up to me and goes, it is bouncing. Rods don't bounce, Elise. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Come to find out, it was the Sikaflex. A nice chunk came out with that rod, but that took them 5 hours alone. So I know a lot of that time they were, like I said, frustrated, but they didn't stop, so I'm thankful for that. They also figured out those corner panels, so what would be considered panels 2 and 7. To remove those completely and replace the rods, you have to take off panel 1 or 8, but to take off panel 1 or 8, you have to take off the pile hoop. So it was a nice little jigsaw puzzle in the corners that we had never experienced, but have taken lots of good notes so that when we go for that rehab and repair project, we are well aware of what we're going to have to look at moving forward. And I just wanted to show a few photos. I mentioned that plate, that before image on the top left, that's what it looked like. And then you can see the nice rod above water with the attachment, and then down below you can see that new plate in place. Also put a couple of pictures of those broken through rods and or the rusted and wonky, for lack of a better term. I apologize, there at the end where they were bent and tormented, just so you could kind of get an idea of what those look like as well. Otherwise, like I said, we finished on time, no overtime was needed, and it appears that we will be on budget as well. Questions, comments?
Councilmember Stuckey.
Always like the on time and on budget. Thank you. No, I just want to say I appreciate the presentation. I mean, this is one of those things that's like, maybe it could have been an email, but then an email, the public doesn't get to see everything that's going on. So I appreciate all the time you put into the presentation.
Of course.
Councilmember Romero.
I'm delighted with the excellent execution of this project. I love this. Project management in my brain. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good news.
Anybody else? Going once, twice. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
All right, there being